Hello, my name is Karin. This is National Korean News from a Humboldt point of view, and I'd like to welcome you all.
Hi, I'm Nawdy Little, and this is Stand Up Humboldt. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing bullying and the impact it's had on a lot of people in our nation today. I've brought on my two guests. We have Fusia and Karin with us today, and we're going to be discussing bullying and the impact it's had on us. But before we get into our conversation, I'd like to just for you guys to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you.
You first.
Bloody. My name is Karin for now. I'm a trans woman. Been living as Karin for many years now, for probably about 15. And I've just been around the county for a long time. I recently left and I'm now in the process of finding my way back again. So.
My name is Fusia Ray, and I am a local drag queen here, and I host a show, Club Triangle, at Jambalaya once a month, and do as much as I can to be involved in the LGBT community in this area.
Great. Well, I'm really glad that you guys decided to come out and talk with me today. I reached out to you and asked if you would be interested in being part of this television show today. And out of my own curiosity, I would like to know why you decided to be part of it today. Fusia?
I decided to be part of it because I think that bullying is a very, very, very important topic that a lot of people, one, maybe think they understand, but I don't think most of us can grasp the severity of what bullying does to a lot of people as well as how common it is in a lot of people's lives. And I know that for me, a lot of times, looking back on my life, now that I'm a little bit older, I've had many times where I realized that, oh wow, that was some pretty intense bullying. That was some pretty intense verbal abuse that I was going through that I didn't even realize at the time because of how it was structured or how it had been gone about. And I think that bringing light to that topic and helping people that are suffering from bullying to recognize it and deal with it, and also bring light to other people so that they can recognize bullying in other people and hopefully make a difference as well.
Right. How about you, Karin? What made you decide to be part of the show today?
Well, when I started my transition back in the early 2000s, when I started presenting as myself, I ran into a lot of trouble. Surprisingly enough, where I expected to run into trouble was the place I didn't have any trouble, and where I didn't expect it is where I had it. And that would be locally, and that was Arcadia, where I had the most problems. And at the time, I worked for a state agency, and I was traveling all over the county, and I was surprised at how many people stood up for me when things did happen. But for the most part, I had to stand up for myself. There was no one else around. Pride was not in existence at the time, or barely in existence at the time. There were no resources. And especially of late, what's gotten me involved is the number of youth that are, and not necessarily queer youth, but young people who are taking their lives as a result of bullying. There was just a recent article about a school where the entire, I can't remember if it was a football or track team or whatever, but 80 students were thrown off the team by the coach because of a coordinated bullying attack on another student. And that was what really got me going.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know that I'm kind of a social media junkie, and my news feed just seems to be full of young children that are committing suicide from bullying. And I think that sometimes people think that bullying only happens in high school or in elementary schools. Mm-hmm. And recently I read an article about a trans teacher who committed suicide after being bullied by other faculty members and other people in the community. Mm-hmm. And so I am very passionate about this cause. I've been bullied quite a bit myself, and I think that people, like I said, believe that it ends at high school, that like we grow up and we stop bullying people, and it's not true. We get bullied every day.
Well, and also I think a common misconception is that after you become an adult, it's not bullying anymore.
Right.
No.
It's an opinion, or I'm just teasing you,
Right.
or oh, I was just joking, it's just fun. But
Right.
bullying is bullying.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're 4 years old or 40 years old, bullying is bullying, and it shouldn't happen.
Right.
And it's still, and also, it doesn't matter if you're 4 or if you're 40 or whatever age you are, it has the same effect.
Totally.
It's not, I mean, you mature and you develop and you learn how to deal with things
Right.
better, or maybe in a different fashion, or you learn how to survive, but that doesn't mean it hurts less because you just got older.
Right.
And I think that that's a misconception that I think a lot of us could just, if we could grasp onto,
Right.
we would recognize a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there's this idea that like the older you get, like the tougher we're supposed to be, and like, oh, if someone says something and it hurts your feelings, it's because you're too soft.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you know, you're a big weenie and all of these things. And I know, I mean, recently I've laid in my bed and cried over things that are being said and accusations that get made, and the world, I mean, I got picked on in school for being little because I was always the short one, you know, so I was an easy target for that. And it seems with the internet now that we can kind of hide and not have to face the people that we are saying things to, the bullying has kind of taken on a severity that I have never seen before.
I've also seen it show up. I play a game called Ingress, and basically it's one of those massive online things. But instead of sitting in front of your computer, you use a smartphone. You're actually out in the world playing the game. And the number of people I've run up against who transfer over from sitting in front of their computer to a situation where they may actually meet someone. And, you know, I've been called faggot, dildo, you know, number of language, you know, and the person not even knowing what gender I was.
Right.
And I think that this is something that goes on not just in social media, but in gaming, in online gaming. And it gets even worse because you're sitting, you never even see a picture of the person.
Right.
You just see an avatar or a game character
Right.
or something. And I think it really gets out of hand in that respect amongst youth. And again, I would say not just queer youth, but youth in general.
Right.
And as Fusia said, as we get older, we're expected to suck it up. And frankly, I don't want to suck it up. I don't have to suck it up, and I'm not going to suck it up.
Right.
You know, if someone calls me out on something, or they're going to hear from me on it.
Right.
And, you know, I've spent enough time. I have a number of scars on my body as a result of stupid things I did when I was younger, and also from being attacked. So,
Yeah. Yeah, do you think that people like in the gaming world, like, because I think people get in this sense of like, there's not a human on the other end. It's just an avatar, so therefore it doesn't have feelings.
Yeah.
You know, that there's like this disconnect of human emotion. And then when you see the amount of violence that we have on TV, or the way that people are treating each other and the lack of respect that people have for each other anymore, I just kind of feel like this is becoming like a volcano that is overflowing and really going to blow the top off, you know?
I also think that social media in general, you know, you post something on Facebook or you send a message through Facebook or whatever social media platform you have, and you think, oh, well, because it went from my keyboard and onto the internet and onto their screen, it doesn't have the same effect.
Right.
It doesn't mean the same thing because I didn't say it
Right.
face to face. But in the culture that we live in now, most interaction is done via social media or some type of media, and there is less face-to-face interaction. So those words that you type and send or text have a stronger meaning now, and bullying can even, in my opinion, possibly be more severe because
I agree with that.
because it's not you can say more when you're not face to face.
Right.
You feel more confident
Right.
to speak your mind when you don't have to look the person in the face, and so
Right.
you say a lot more hurtful things.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to face the consequences.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
I've spanned the generations between. I remember when the internet was, and I'm not talking about Al Gore here, was literally invented by DARPA, the Defense Research Organization, and it was used just simply between the colleges, and it was meant in case of nuclear war to be a communication system. and it grew into what we have today. If you had seen the internet when I saw it, you'd laugh. But people don't have to face the consequences online, because you can just press a button and you can disconnect, or you can block the person.
Right.
You can say your nasty things that you
Right.
want to say, and you can block them, and the other person has no recourse.
Right.
And when I was young, if somebody, called you something, they ran the risk of getting slugged.
Right. Right, because it happened on the playground or, at an event or something like
no,
that.
I'm not advocating that somebody should go out and slug somebody, but I think there is now this kind of insulation between what you say and the consequences of what you say, brought on by TV, the internet. I used to say the three most powerful teachers we had in the world were mom, dad, for those of us who had both, or mom and mom, or dad and dad. I won't go into the other variants, but basically parents and TV. Now, to that I would add the internet completely, as a third most powerful teacher that we have in the world.
Right. It's a pretty helpless feeling to be bullied online, because anybody can log onto Facebook and create a fake account with a fake name and a fake picture. And so anybody can post on Craigslist whatever they want with an anonymous email address. And so then it becomes this, I get to say terrible things about you, and ha ha ha, you don't even know who I am. So I'm really the big chicken who is hiding my own identity and just lashing out at people in anger and stuff like that. And then, recently I'm starting to realize that bullying doesn't just happen, within social medias or within the classroom. People get bullied by their families. People get bullied by their intimate partners. And I think sometimes that, people will often say, oh, I'm not in an abusive relationship because he doesn't hit me, she doesn't hit me, they don't hit me. But there is this emotional abuse that goes on that is from the constant bullying, the constant picking on somebody. And I've seen it, women in the workplace, where the men are constantly making the little snarky comments. I've had intimate partners that manipulate and twist what I say and pick on me for saying something that I didn't say, because now it's been twisted. And so it's becoming, I almost kind of feel like being a jerk is like some sort of social norm. Like, people aren't nice anymore. People aren't courteous. I see a lot of young people lacking respect. I see a lot of older people lacking respect. This
Definitely.
lack of compassion that we have for humans hurts my heart.
And just common courtesy between one person and another. And I'm really glad you brought up that point, because when you first asked me to be on the show and you said the topic was bullying, of course my first thought was, I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about that, because I wasn't physically bullied as a child,
right.
or an adolescent, or as an adult. And I actually had to check myself right then and there, because I've suffered a lot of emotional and psychological abuse growing up. And I think that is one of the biggest things that people sometimes overlook, is that if you weren't punched, if you weren't slammed into a locker, if you weren't stuffed into a locker, if you weren't thrown down, if you weren't kicked, if you didn't have some kind of physical altercation, then you actually weren't bullied, you were just teased.
Right.
You were it was just all in good fun, and that's, in my opinion, completely inaccurate.
Right.
A lot of people, myself included, suffer for years and years and years from the emotional abuse of family, friends, other people, and it's I was thinking about what it was called and how to kind of like put a phrase to it, and I could only think of like candy coated or sugar or supportive abuse. I think is what I came up with. The supportive of abuse is we love you, but there's a lot of that like, I'm just telling you this because I want to help you. And I heard a lot of things like, well, boys don't do that, and boys don't do this, and why don't you just act like all the other boys, and why can't you just be more like this person, and you're not going to amount to anything when you grow up because you do this or because you like that. And there was a very strict and strong social construct when I was growing up that men were this way and women were this way, and it, to the point that it was ridiculous. how you combed your hair, or how you know, what colors men wore and women wore, and all kinds of just really unrealistic expectations. And it was this, we're just trying to help you because you need to be this way. So growing up, I never thought it was bullying when other people would make fun of me for not being this specific way. But then looking back on it, realizing if you're making fun of somebody, if you're teasing somebody, if you are consistently ridiculing somebody for anything, I mean, there's really no list for anything. If you are consistently ridiculing somebody or telling somebody that they are not good enough or they did not measure up to any kind of standard, I feel like, as a general rule, that is a very basis of bullying. Because none of us have the right to say, you're not doing something right, or you are not right, or you don't look right, or you don't anything. That, I mean, I think as an individual, I had to take a step back and check myself. Part of what I do and my emceeing and my entertaining is very common, and a lot of people expect drag queens to be very catty and very witty, and they want you to cut people down, and that's part of
They call that what, throwing shade?
Throwing
Is that
shade,
the
yeah,
proper
being
term?
shady,
Okay.
yeah,
Just
among
trying
a
to
few
catch
other
up on
things
the
that
drag
probably
terms here, you know, keep in the loop.
And you know, and it's fun. It's fun to be that way, and it is entertaining. But I had to take a step back and check myself and say, you know, ridiculing anybody for anything is bullying.
Right.
And if we would remind ourselves of that, I think that it would solve a lot of problems. Because as someone who was bullied, my first thought when somebody bullies me or bullies somebody else is, what happened to them to make them think that this is okay? They were either bullied themselves or they were raised very poorly. Because I don't personally believe that a very happy, well-balanced individual who is living a very successful, and I don't mean monetarily, I mean personally successful, enjoyable, comfortable life, wants to go around making other people miserable.
See, I always see it as someone projecting, like their own insecurities often of like, I'm not okay with who I am, so I'm going to tear down everybody else and tell them that you shouldn't be okay with who you are. I am ashamed of what I am doing, so I am going to project that onto you and tell you, girl, you should be ashamed for dressing like that, you know? And then, Karin, I don't know if you'd be willing to talk a little bit, because you kind of made the transition about the difference from like being, you know, in the male form and bullying versus being a woman. I mean, you kind of have that unique experience of kind of feeling both sides of that.
Yeah, a lot of trans women, you know, and trans men, trans people in general, because it is like anything, it's a spectrum. We grow up one way, we decide what we are, and we either become it or we don't. In my particular case, I went from one gender to the next, and that's how I identify. I identify as a woman, and I also identify as trans. Just because I walked in the male world doesn't necessarily mean I completely understand them. But my experiences were such that, you know, I mean, today we call it bullying, but to me it's abuse, you know, be it a relationship, you know, being in an abusive relationship, or just abusing someone, you know, just a simple, I don't know, I lost the word I was looking for, but you know, the types of abuse are, you know, physical, obviously, you know, psychological, emotional. You can isolate someone, and a lot of people, especially in the internet world, you know, find themselves suddenly isolated, you know, by their supposed friends. One of the things that happened to me was when I was walking down the aisles of Safeway one day, you know, I had some guy following me, making comments, and I had to finally stop and turn around and said, you've got a choice to make here. Two things. You can turn around and walk away. I said, or you can step forward and get hurt. I said, because I'm bigger than you are. And, you know, I didn't want to get into a fight with somebody in the aisles of Safeway, but, you know, I was feeling physically threatened by this person, and I felt that the only way was to physically stand up for myself at that particular moment. Now, it also helped that I was wearing heels at the time, which may have pushed me up around 6'3" or so I did kind of tower over this guy.
Yeah, that doesn't really work with me.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when I went from presenting masculine to presenting female, things changed drastically in my life. I slammed hard into the glass ceiling. I got it at work. My supervisor of the time, I had since left the state and was working in private industry, started telling me things like, oh, well, so-and-so doesn't want to talk to you. This client doesn't want to associate with you. And I thought, wait a minute, our initial agreement is that we were to sit down together and talk to these people about what was happening. And I come to find out much later that, in fact, and by accident, with a very sweet older woman that I was working with, she didn't know. My then boss was essentially telling lies to me about things, and I consider that to be abusive as well, a form of bullying as well. Also I started hearing things like, she's PMSing. Well, first of all, I can't.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm just really sad to hear all the stories about people that are being bullied, and I hear stories about drag queens bullying each other, and it's not just the throwing the shade on the stage, but I think that we are breeding almost a competition world. We're so competitive that often when people feel like they are losing, that to tear other people down, it makes people feel good about themselves, and it's really sad. I wish that bullying didn't have to happen. There's an amazing suicide hotline out there that people can always reach out to. I see it posted all over the internet. I don't think that they talk about bullying enough in schools, because I think pack mentality is strong. You get one person to start bullying, and the pack mentality builds, and pretty soon you have a team of 80 football players that are picking on a single student. I think it's very vicious in the young women that isolate other women for no reason, and I don't like her anymore, we're just not talking to her anymore, and these young people are left completely devastated, not understanding, what did I do wrong, why are you treating me this way, I don't understand, I'm confused, all I did was try to be nice to you. I think often when we stick up for ourselves, that it feeds the troll and feeds the dragon. And so I think it's natural that we want to defend ourselves and say, I'm not that person you're telling everybody I am. I'm not this horrible person. You're telling lies about me. And all that does is perpetuate it. And so, as an adult, my own experience is to not feed the dragon. If I don't give them a reason to continue to talk to me, because the more I defend myself, the worse it kind of gets. And then I'm at a loss, and then I'm frustrated, and I'm in tears, and I'm how, and that person could give two craps less about me,
And you mentioned suicide and suicide hotlines. I think one of the things that we miss on is getting out just that information, because there's so much. People they don't even want to talk about suicide, especially amongst, young people and to students. I think the biggest thing is for more education about all things.
Do you guys have any last minute suggestions of places people can go? I love the It Gets Better campaign, because I think that that's a strong campaign out there that talks a lot about being bullied and that life can get better and that we all have hard times. I love TED Talks, so I'll always promote them. And the suicide hotline and stuff like that. And I suggest that if you feel like you're being bullied or you feel like you're being picked on, bring it to people's awareness. Talk to your friends, talk to your family about it, because there may not be an end to it. Especially if it's going on online. And really, all you can try to do is save your own spirit. And be around the people that love you and care about you and build you up and bring you lots of positivity into your world. And I am just really thankful that you guys were willing to come out here today and share some of your own experiences with Humboldt County. And maybe the world, who knows, is going to see this.
Thank you for the invite.
I think that it's a conversation that we could talk 12 hours about. By any means, I don't even feel like we really got wet in the subject more than our toes dipped at this point. And so if if you're being bullied, call a friend, call somebody who cares, and don't believe all of the hype out there about the mean people in the world, because there are definitely some amazing
Yes.
people in
Yes,
the world.
absolutely.
And I find that often the brighter that those of us shine, the more other people want to dim us.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I want everybody to keep shining bright and to be happy and joyous. And thanks for tuning in today to Stand Up Humboldt, and we hope you come back and visit us again. Thank you so much. Have a great day.